Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. A topic that we discuss quite a bit here on the Aaron Torres Pod and Aaron Torres Pod YouTube channel. It is Coach Prime, Colorado, Deion Sanders, the Buffs. Okay, yes, and I know, by the way, Colorado and the Buffs are the same thing. Coach Prime and Deion are the same thing. But we talk about Coach Prime a lot on this channel, and I'll be blunt. I really do like him, like what he's about. I believe that he truly does love making an impact on young men. And listen, the football stuff, like, teams got to be better. All 85 guys in that locker room know that. He knows that. His staff knows that. But I believe he comes from a good place. I believe he wants what's best for these young men. And I am pro Coach Prime, the dude, and certainly Coach Prime, the coach, okay? So I bring it up because one thing that cannot be disputed about Coach Prime is that everything he says, everything that even has his name attached to it, absolutely blows up. And I want to talk about this article that came out on Sunday about the Colorado football team. The article was from Athlon Sports, and the headline kind of tells it all, okay? Deion Sanders' chaotic culture turns into locker room violence at Colorado. Well, I bring it up because I saw the article start to make its rounds. And I'll be honest, I clicked the article like everybody else. And I think pretty quickly, you can kind of see, like, this article's absolute nonsense. I don't know how you could publish this. I've worked at major media outlets, all unnamed sources, but even the unnamed sources, the stories themselves are so absurd. Some of them don't make sense. Some of them can't be factually correct. That pretty quickly I was like, I'm not even going to touch this unless Coach Prime addresses it. Now, to the credit of the internet, this did not really blow up because I think a lot of people felt the same exact way, that this is so ridiculous, it's not believable, whatever. But Coach Prime did talk about this, did mention it. His players did talk about it at the podium media availability on Monday. So I quickly want to talk about it, but let me start by saying this. One, it was always a ridiculous story. But two, it reminds me of something that Coach Prime said just a few weeks ago at Big 12 Media Days. And it reminds me of one big thing that I think is indisputable about this Colorado football program. So let's talk about the article. First of all, let's just get all the cards on the table. The article, again, is titled, Deion Sanders' Chaotic Culture Turns into Locker Room Violence in Colorado. And among the accusations by an author that no one has ever heard of, by the way, he's got great sourcing for a guy that nobody's ever heard of, has no social media, whatever. But among the accusations, Cormani McClain, former five-star who transferred out in the spring, that he was slapped by Shiloh Sanders after a loss, threatened to kill Shiloh Sanders, that there's guns all over the locker room, that coaches are having to settle thousands of dollars of gambling debt inside the locker room, what else? That Jordan Seaton, the five-star offensive tackle who signed this offseason, that he had to prove his manhood against somebody else by basically wrestling him and fighting him. Again, listen, do I think any football program in any part of the country has saints, 85 saints in them, except for maybe the New Orleans Saints? No. Listen, it's college. Kids are crazy. They do dumb stuff, whatever. I did dumb stuff when I was that age. But the stories were so ridiculous. And the crazy part was you could punch holes in the story pretty quickly. Okay, so first of all, let's just break that down before we even get to Deion's response and my thoughts on it. One, let's break down some of these stories, okay? So first of all, Cormani McClain allegedly got slapped by Shiloh Sanders after an Oregon State game. They said Cormani shut down. He was never the same after. Okay, that feels like in some way, shape, or form it could be believable. Except here's the thing. Right away, first of all, Cormani actually commented on this, said it's cap, it's nonsense, it's ridiculous, it's whatever. But even before Cormani acknowledged it, let's just talk about it like adults. So he got slapped after a game in November, shut down, but decided to return to Colorado in January for another semester because remember, he didn't transfer until after spring practice. So he came back to Colorado, went through another semester, spring practice. After that, before deciding to transfer, it doesn't make sense. By the way, the Jordan Seaton, Savion Washington thing. People are saying they weren't even on campus at the same time. Now, I think they were, but I think their time on campus barely overlaps. There's factual inaccuracies, there's name inaccuracies. By the way, my other thought the second that I read this was two things. One, can criticize Coach Prime for a lot on the field, the team, whatever. But at the same time, one thing he's been straightforward about, we recruit smart, fast, disciplined with character, okay? And if you look at his guys, he largely backs that up. Like this idea that there's just guns floating around the locker room, that everything's great. First of all, he would never allow that, one. Two, by the way, the athletic department, if they found out, would certainly never allow it. But three, just look at some of the dudes on the roster. Travis Hunter, 4.0 GPA. One of their best returning defensive players, Shane Cokes, came from Dartmouth, okay? I don't think Dartmouth is known for their wild Grand Theft Auto culture down in Dartmouth, the Green Wave or whatever they are. One of their best wide receivers, Will Shepard, transferred from Vanderbilt. I mean, you go on and on down the list. Character is actually a high priority for the guys that Coach Prime recruits. So it's ridiculous. My other last thought when I was reading the article, you understand, like, if there's one program that probably couldn't get away with this stuff, it's actually Colorado for a couple reasons. One, they literally record everything, okay? Coach Prime's son does an incredible job. Deion Sanders Jr., Bucky, does an incredible job documenting the program. They have cameras on everything, okay? And I know if there's violence or there's this, there's that, they're not going to put it on camera. But at the same time, all you got to do is watch the videos, and you know that is a harmonious locker room. Everybody gets along. I think even watching it from last year to this year, you see kind of the growth and maturity in Shedeur Sanders and some of the other guys. So I just bring it up because it was always ridiculous. Coach Prime did address it on one of the well-off media videos, and here is actually what he had to say. He said, "That's when you know you're doing well, when they start lying," he said. "Shouldn't there be some kind of penalty or ramification? But nevertheless, we have the highest GPA in the history of the school. Wonder how they do that." Worth noting, by the way, one of their players also at the podium basically said, "Enough is enough. This is ridiculous." But it's interesting, right? So first of all, I agree with Coach Prime. They start lying, making stuff up. I do think there should be some penalty. I think Athlon's probably pretty close to bankrupt already if they're publishing articles like this, but I would sue. Good luck recouping any money because I don't think they have any. But three, and this is the important part. This is the part that really stood out to me. You know what this proved to me? That Coach Prime was dead right with something that he said at Big 12 Media Days. Remember at Big 12 Media Days, Coach Prime was kind of doing media availability, and he said something I'll give you the exact quote. The exact quote was, he said, "I'm judged on a different scale than everybody else." And he went on, he talked about, our kids not only have to be good, but they have to be academically sound, blah, 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 this and that. But isn't this kind of proof of that? First of all, is there any other 4-8 team in the history of college football that anyone is doing expose pieces on? No. So that's one. But two, on top of that, it also proves that there is a microscope on Colorado bigger than any. Because remember, when Coach Prime said that, "Oh, what do you mean he's judged on a different level?" Well, he is judged on a different level. He's the first coach that went from 1 win to 4 wins in year one, and everybody called it a failure, right? He's the only coach, by the way, that Dan Lanning felt the need to record his locker room speech for. He's the only coach that, whatever. But he is judged on a different scale. When he wins, it's not enough. When he wins, well, he was supposed to win by more. They sure do talk a lot. When he loses, oh, he's the worst coach that's ever walked the face of the earth. But this is just further proof of that. Because here's the thing. One, first of all, let me just say this. Credit to the internet. Yes, I'm talking to you, the internet, because nobody even bought this story, okay? But at the same time, let's say people had bought into it. Let's say, by the way, this is true. Let's say every word in that story was true. This would be the biggest story in sports right now. And I find that interesting for this reason. It's for a reason and a topic that we've discussed on this channel a lot over the last couple of weeks, and that's this. Georgia football is dealing with a lot of off-the-field issues right now, okay? How about this for a fact? Georgia, remember, this is the preseason #1 team, so we're not talking about a random school that nobody cares about. No, not talking about, I'm not even going to name a school. I don't want to be disrespectful. But Georgia, #1 team in the country coming into the year. and we talked about this last week. You know that they've had 29 players arrested since January of 2023, 18 months. That's according to Athens Online, by the way. That's not Torres making it up. That's from Athens Online, a newspaper that's in Athens and covers them directly. And so, look, to be fair to Georgia, I understand that most of them are traffic violations, speeding, things of that nature. Most of them are not violent. Most of them are not something that would warrant jail time. To Kirby Smart's credit, the player that was arrested for a felony last week was thrown off the team. But isn't this kind of proof that Coach Prime is judged on a different standard, just like he said at Big 12 Media Days? He said, I'm judged on a different scale. Well, he is, because if this was true, this would be the biggest story in sports. Meanwhile, Georgia, time and time again, has players getting in trouble. Nobody even cared. So I find it interesting. He's judged on a different scale. I'm embarrassed and feel awful for him that he even has to acknowledge this. But he's right. When they can't say anything bad about you, they start making things up. Lastly, let me say this. We're 3 weeks away from the start of the season. I cannot wait, because I think this team is going to be a lot better than people think. I've said it before. I'll say it again. We'll probably do a preview of Colorado at some point in the coming days. But you look at that team. I think they're better at basically every position group than they were a year ago. Shedeur Sanders is going to be really good. The O-line is much improved. Khalil Benson transfers in, played a million games at Indiana. Jordan Seaton's there, etc. By the way, don't tell me that Jordan Seaton as a true freshman can't play, because Alabama had a freshman starting at right tackle last year. Wide receiver room should be better. By the way, I find it really funny. The newest well-off media video is titled "Too Many Weapons on Offense." It's like a real-life GTA, Grand Theft Auto, so obviously they're poking fun at that report as well. But the wide receiver room, as good as it was last year, has improved. The defensive front, I think, is improved. BJ Green coming in from Arizona State. Quincy Wiggins coming in, on and on. Secondary has always been good. Linebackers are improved as well. So we got plenty of time to talk about Colorado on the field. It's August 6th, which means we're like 24 or so days away, 23 days away from Colorado's first game on the field. But off the field, I credit Coach Prime. I credit this program with how they've handled this situation. If you enjoyed this video, do me a quick favor. Make sure to subscribe to the Aaron Torres Pod YouTube channel. New clips, new videos going up every single day. Plenty of college football ahead. Big season ahead. We got some big things coming. Appreciate your support. Click subscribe, and we'll talk.